it's Candace and welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I just wanted to talk about how to get a walk-in tattoo. I tried to film this last week, but I kind of went into a lot of detail. So if you want more detail than this, let me know in the comments below, but I'm gonna try to keep it short and sweet. I was just in the middle of drawing and I was like, let me be a YouTuber for a second. But anyway, so if you don't know, I'm a tattoo artist, so this is like firsthand from like a client perspective, even though I've never actually gotten just a walk-in tattoo. Too nervous for that. But I definitely know from the tattoo artist perspective what makes it easier. So if you want to know all that, just keep watching. So the first and most important thing is bring your ID. You'd be surprised how many people don't, I guess, realize that you need your ID for this. Like, you can't leave it in the car, you can't leave your ID at home. A majority of shops you'll be going to get a tattoo or even a piercing, they will not accept a photograph of your ID. They probably are not going to accept a photograph sent from home of your ID. It's too easy to edit it and stuff. Now, I know there's at least some that, well, for instance, my shop, all the paperwork's done online, so to file the paperwork you have to attach a photo of your ID. So like generally some shops it might be a little more easygoing, but a good rule of thumb, bring your ID, a photo ID that has your birth date so you can prove your age and that you can consent to the whole thing, because we can't, and a good tattoo shop is not gonna tattoo you if you don't have a valid ID that matches who you are. Okay, so that seems obvious, but you'd be surprised, right? So bring your ID, or you might not be able to get a tattoo, right? The second, there's not really much to getting a walk-in, right? So the second thing is to, if you can, come in with an idea. Like, if you walk in and say, oh, I'm not sure, I just want something for my kids. Well, like, I would love to help you, but as a tattoo artist, I don't know your kids, right? Like, do you want to get just their names? Do you want to get their names in a design? Do you want them just like in a row? Do you not want any of that? Do you want something that represents them? Like, is their name Autumn, so you want some like fall themed things? Like I don't know what you want. Do you want a tattoo of like a toy they always play with? I don't know what means the most to you, you know what I mean? So I would at least try to think of something like that ahead of time, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But beyond that, if you can, you don't have to go on Pinterest or Google or anything. Like, if you have an idea, you can sketch something yourself if you want. Be careful, because some shops will literally just, some tattoo artists, not shops, in some circumstances, you might hand them a sketch saying, I want something like this, and they might actually just tattoo your sketch on you, which, like, if you're a good drawer, sure, but like, just be careful with that. Like, if you want them to draw something nicer, make sure you say that explicitly, and if they're not redrawing your sketch, you are allowed to say, you know what, never mind, I want something a little cleaner than this, or something. Like, I'm not an artist, I just drew that for the idea, not I want this as a tattoo, right? But you can still, like, you can go to Pinterest, like, you can look, what did other people do for their like names? Why is this on? Like, who am I? What am I doing? But you can, like, you can get an idea from other things, whether it's like taking a couple things, like maybe you want a picture of a small shopping cart. Like, there's probably a lot of different ways to tattoo a shopping cart. Do you want it, what style do you want it? Do you want it like this or that? So when you're getting any tattoo, try to find a reference, but especially a walk-in tattoo, because usually walk-in tattoos are supposed to be quick. So if you're not sure what style, like fine line, traditional, color, black and gray, like, if you're not sure, it's also hard for the tattoo artist to be sure. And unless you're really open to what you want to get, like you're letting them do whatever style they want, or like whatever their style is, whatever, If you're particular about what you want, try to figure it out ahead of time. And that'll make it easier for you and the tattoo artist to figure out a way to come up with something that's going to be specifically for you. And then in the same breath, so you can come up with references, whether it's actual photographs of things or tattoos, right? And just bring them to show to the artist, and that'll cut out the middleman of like, hey, what's like, I gotta narrow it down, because just saying shopping cart, there's like, are you looking for a half sleeve? Are you looking for a little tiny line drawing that has to be like super simplified? Like there's things to think about. So if you can narrow that down at least a little bit, and come in with the references to point you in a direction, that'll save everyone a lot of time. And then along with knowing what you want ahead of time, if you are getting like words or something, unless you want some custom hand-drawn things, which probably not every single tattoo artist does. I mean, like maybe they should do, like artists should be well-rounded, whatever. Maybe not everyone is going to do like a hand-drawn, like draw right on your body and then tattoo a name or a word or a phrase. You might want to look into what font you want. At least think a little ahead of time. Do you want something more script, more like Times New Roman, like something a little more standard? Think of that, especially think about what size you want it, because you have to have it a certain size to fit. So if you can think ahead of time of like what font will work with the size, and maybe think of a couple fonts. I'm kind of like skipping all over the place. If you can narrow it down, script or not script, your tattoo artist can probably figure out a font that will work for what you're looking for. But if you're going to be really particular, like if you're like, man, like I don't know if, because sometimes there'll be walk-ins and they're like, what do you want? And I'll literally just poke through all the fonts on my phone just to figure out what they want, or not on my phone, my iPad. And I literally don't mind at all, but there's every once in a while where someone, and it's not a fault to them, like it's a tattoo on your body forever, right? But there will be some times where like people are just really unsure. They don't know, they can't decide between a couple, or like none of the ones I've showed them are quite right. So then they got to spend extra time. I usually send them to this website. It's called dafont.com. And like sometimes it's a lot of extra time, which like, I guess like I don't mind. Like it'd suck if I like miss out on an opportunity for another walk-in if they're taking like a super long time. Usually walk-ins don't take that long. But the best walk-ins are the ones that come in with the font already selected. They're like, I love this. Like they already know exactly what they want. Sometimes people even print out the exact size. All I gotta do is photocopy it, and then I can make a stencil and tattoo it on them, you know? You don't necessarily have to do all that, but if you can narrow down the font, and if you're really particular, definitely go on a website like dafont.com. Tattoo artists can download fonts directly from that website if you want a specific font. Just bear in mind, lettering can't always be like super bold, because like tattoos like bleed over time, like the ink won't be as crisp over time. So the more bold it is now, the more it'll just turn into a big black blob, if that makes sense. So bear in mind, you might not be able to get any font that's on that website, but you can at least select a couple or a few to show to your tattoo artist, be like, this one's my favorite, but just in case, maybe come up with like a backup and another backup in case they're not exactly gonna work for the tattoo you want. I think that's the majority of like how to prepare. Now, like if you don't know what you want ahead of time, like some shops I'm sure still do, like they have flash on the wall, like by all means, like you can try for that, but I'm not sure if every single shop is gonna have that. My shop at least like hasn't had that since COVID. We haven't had like books to look through a flash. A lot of our artists do have like flash on their Instagram, so maybe you can look ahead of time, see if there's anything available that you can see online, that maybe you can choose a design before you get there. But in general, unless you're hoping for like a flash tattoo on a wall, try to know what you want ahead of time. And then beyond that, there's not too much more to say besides, before you walk in, make sure you eat a meal. Like, I don't know how long, even if it's a small tattoo, you can still pass out if you have low blood sugar, if you hadn't eaten all day, if you haven't eaten since the morning. You want to make sure you're going to be able to sustain yourself. A a lot of walk-ins, like, they're oftentimes your first tattoo. So if it is your first tattoo, obviously make sure you eat all that stuff. Don't be afraid to tell your artist, like, hey, this is my first tattoo. Like, a lot of times, like, I'll ask someone if they have many other tattoos, and that's usually when it comes out, like, oh, this is actually my first one. Sometimes they do say it ahead of time, but don't be afraid to tell your artist, like, hey, this is my first tattoo. Like, I'm a little nervous. What can I expect? Is there anything you need me to do? Usually I just tell people all you gotta do is relax and stay still. Usually I tell people, like, I'm gonna start with a small line, so you don't, what is this, the remote? I'll start with a small line so it doesn't really, I'm not like diving right into like really intense, so that way you can kind of feel how it is and be like, okay, that's okay. And just be aware, like, you're allowed to communicate with your artist. Don't be afraid to tell them it's not exactly where you want it. Don't be like too nitpicky. Definitely listen to your artist's advice on placement. If they think something really isn't gonna work, listen to what they're saying. If you think it's BS, fair enough to walk out if you want, whatever. Like, you don't have to listen to what they say if they're like refusing to do it how you want it. But just bear in mind, they are the professionals and they're usually looking out for your best interests. Now, sometimes artists can be lazy and that's why, but just do your research. And yeah, if you have any questions about anything, like if you've heard anything from tattoo artists, leave them down below. I can try to make, I can try to cover some topics. But okay, let's see. How many times am I gonna say beyond that in this video? But yeah, so don't forget to eat, like, prepare, make sure you're rested, make sure, and like, if you can, like, make sure you didn't like come straight from work and you're all sweaty and nasty, which isn't the end of the world, but like, just think if you're getting a tattoo on your foot and you just spent like 12 hours like with your foot in your shoes, not only are you tired from work, but like, we all gotta suffer then, right? No, but like, people, like, I'm just being a little weird. It's fine, but if you can, usually I like to show up like fresh, so that way, not only that, like, the skin over here isn't covered from the grime from work, so like if the paper towel hits that or like something, it's probably less likely for cross-contamination if you're wearing something clean and if you're a little bit cleaner, if you can manage that. That's like extra, like, I don't know, blah, 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 blah. And then beyond that, the only other thing I will say is if you're getting a walk-in tattoo, make sure you let the artist know your budget from the start, if you have one. Like, if you're like just ready to pay whatever, if you're like, man, I got like $500 in my pocket, this tattoo's only gonna take an hour, like, all likelihood, $500 will more than cover a tattoo that only takes an hour. But just in case, like, if you don't have a budget, or like, no, if you don't have a budget, that's fine. Like, if you're just happy with whatever the artist says for what you want, you just want to get what you want, that's cool. If you have a strict budget, like if you're like, my limit is $150, that would be important to say ahead of time, because sometimes shop minimum is $150, sometimes it's $100, sometimes shop minimum is $250. I don't know if those are walk-in shops, but like, that's real things, at least in the United States, like in city areas anyway, I'm not sure. But if you have a strict budget of a certain amount, make sure you let that be known ahead of time, because not even just like what's shop minimum, but if an artist is like, okay, oh, I love this idea of the shopping cart, but you want it trad with like words underneath and like colors, and like you want all this going on and you want it 4 inches tall, like, I'm sure the artist is happy to do it. They're happy to design it. It might take them like 30 minutes to an hour to draw it up. I don't know, maybe more, maybe less, who knows? If you say, I want the shopping cart with this, that, they go back, draw it up to perfection. They're like, I'm so excited for this tattoo. They look at it, they're like, okay, I don't, whatever the design ends up being, they're like, okay, I think, depending on the final size that the client wants it, probably around like $300 to $400, depending on the final size we end up choosing. And then we go up to the front, they're like, I love it. This has happened to me before. They're like, oh, this is beautiful. Or like, whatever, maybe not beautiful. they're like, this is perfect, exactly what I wanted. And then the client says, oh, my budget's $150. Like, can we make that work? The answer is no. Oh, my mom's home. Oh, sorry about that. But yes, the answer is no. Probably the exact design is not gonna work. If I was thinking $300, the $150 would have been nice to know before I spent all that time drawing it. Cause we probably can do a shopping cart that's only $150. We can probably figure it out. I don't know if it can be all the color you want, maybe a little color, depending on the shop and the shop minimum. But we can simplify things. We can keep things a little less complex. That's what simplify means. We can accommodate a price, but if we make a design that's supposed to be $300 or $400, it's not going to be the same design that ends up on your skin if all you have is $150. And you got to think of tax. But if I hear that you have a strict $150 budget, I'm like, not only did I spend so much time drawing this now that like I wasted my time on that, because now I have to simplify it. And now in the back of my head, I'm like, they're probably not even going to give me a tip. Like I've already done all this extra work. Plus they probably aren't going to give me a tip because now we're fitting it like strictly into the $150 budget, because they still want the big design, so they're going to want the most they can get for that like smaller price tag. So it's just like, it just puts a bummer on the whole thing. And like, I never mind if someone doesn't give me a tip. Like, I don't, like, if you leave, like, that's the price I gave you, it's fair. But like, especially when you already spent so much time on someone and it's like, well, I'm not even going to get paid for that work. Like, I have to do a whole nother set of work to make it work. So it just adds like extra layers of suck to the equation. So if you have a strict budget, just do your best to let the artist know ahead of time. Cut out the middleman. It'll save you time waiting for them to draw for the one that's not going to work. Most artists probably aren't going to screw themselves over by being like, well, I'll do the $300 design for $150. Like, it's not as simple as just shrinking it down or like removing one element. Like, it's more complicated than that. So if you have a strict budget, tell us. If you're getting a tattoo, come in with a photo ID. If you're getting a walk-in tattoo, come in with your idea in mind with references. Please, if you have them, try your best. If you're wanting script or words, something like that, usually walk-ins are simple like that. If you can come in at least with an idea of the font or an actual font picked out from a font website, would be beautiful. And then just make sure you're prepared for a tattoo, eat, all that stuff, and then make sure you know your budget. If you have one, tell your artist, and then it'll go smoothly for everyone involved. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, let me know if you have any more questions in the comments down below. I've talked a lot, but I definitely have a lot more to say, I'm sure. I talk a lot. But if you have any questions about what I said or what I left out, I can go into more depth of like how to find a walk-in shop, like all that stuff, but we don't need to watch a 50-minute video right now, right? But anyway, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at CandanceL. This is my personal Instagram, so you can send me things like tattoos, piercings to react to. I love all that stuff. If you want me to react to anything, I'm open to that. Don't forget to follow me on my tattoo Instagram. This is strictly for tattoo business, so if you're interested in a tattoo, feel free to message me about that. But even if you don't want a tattoo from me anytime soon, feel free to follow that account, give me some engagement. I really appreciate that. Just see what I'm up to and see me grow. I'm only a year and a half in and I'm just trying to get better and better. But anyway, all of those accounts will be linked down below. It's CandanceL for my personal. Chromatic Sauce is my tattoo Instagram. Oh my gosh, the outro's too long. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and whatever you want to do. I don't care. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. I love ya. See you in the next one. Bye. I hope it was helpful for you. And I'm still gonna have to edit this because I'm almost halfway through, but she came home a little earlier than I was anticipating. Anyway, I'm being goofy now. Bye.